Okay. All right, we're going to start now. I know there's more people who are still coming, but appreciate everybody being here. And for those who are here in person, please sign in. And for those who are online attending, if you could just send me an email so I know you were here, because that may change too. So that way, everyone who's here gets to vote on the next movie, which I will send them. Got that. Thank you.
Standing along. Ed is going to remember.
Okay, everyone, please make sure your phone is muted. We're going to start.
Oh, I'm sorry. But anyway,
okay, thank you. All right, so everyone, welcome. I have a sign-up sheet here for people who are coming in now, and I'm going to ask everyone to make sure your phone is muted. And I'm going to introduce our special guest, Chris Sarandon. Please give a nice welcome. Chris, you can't see it because most of the people are not actually on camera, but there's a lot more here. So
cool. Nice to meet you all.
So I'm going to do a little intro. I didn't even know about the part about you being a musician as well. Chris actually grew up in West Virginia. His parents owned a restaurant, and when he was in high school, he played the drums and sang backup with a local band called the Teen Tones that toured, backing up people like Bobby Darin, Gene Vincent, and Danny and the Juniors. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Great. It was a great time, actually. A lot of fun.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah, just no, you got to use the mouse on the bottom.
Oh,
Thank you. Okay.
that'll do.
So Chris started out in New York acting, but he was in theater and stage, but his first big breakthrough was in Dog Day Afternoon, which he was nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for.
And are you able to cut off that screen? It's been doing funny.
It's been on and off. It's kind of weird.
Flashing one.
So, and Chris, you didn't know this, but when I was in high school, I was the theater reviewer, film and
Oh, yeah.
So I did that in high school for the school paper, and one of the movies I reviewed was Lipstick,
Oh, boy.
where Chris plays a rapist essentially, and I praised your performance, but I must say I kind of killed Margot Hemingway's performance. I thought she was pretty terrible, but
Well, she was not really an actress. Margot was basically a country girl from Ketchum, Idaho, ski enthusiast, and also, one of the scions of the Hemingway family. But she was a kind of accidental celebrity. She became a model just kind of accidentally because she has such a great face, and she was such a towering figure.
yeah.
And she was a lovely young woman, but not suited for acting. Her sister Marielle was, and has had quite a career.
Right, which I actually remember writing about, saying, but her younger sister was really good.
Yeah, totally. And she was 13 years old or something, I think, when we did
Wow, she was really young.
Yeah.
And then, of course, also The Sentinel, which I remember seeing. And I'm thinking they're terrifically talented. Some of these movies, okay, but then so Chris has played on all these different types of movies, And then he played Jesus Christ in the day Christ died, which was a very acclaimed TV movie back a while ago. So very cool, very cool. He was also with Goldie Hawn in Protocol. And the big roles that pretty much everyone, especially here, would be familiar with was Fright Night, The Princess Bride, Child's Play with Chucky, and of course, Dog Day Afternoon. And I should also note, Chris is married to Joanna Gleason, who's one of my favorite Broadway actresses. So she's a terrific talent, Tony Award winner.
Yes.
And I didn't realize this until recently that she is Monty Hall's daughter. So who knew that? Right?
Yes, my father-in-law, who has sadly passed away, but was a great figure in my life as well. I really loved Monty a lot. And his wife, Marilyn, who was also very accomplished, a film producer, television producer.
And you've also been doing voice work, Nightmare Before Christmas. And tell us about some of the other voice work you've been doing.
Oh gosh, I not that much more. I mean, mostly I'm, I guess, best known for the character of Jack Skellington in Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, which is a wonderful stop action animation movie. I've done a couple of other minor in terms of, you know, they're being out there in terms of the public's perception. But I think The Nightmare Before Christmas is certainly the one that sticks in everybody's mind.
Hey, can we ask one question about Nightmare?
Yeah.
Why didn't you sing the song? Why did have somebody else sing the song?
The songs had already been recorded when they cast me. And I'm not sure exactly the reason why. I know that Danny Elfman is an extraordinary composer. He's composed the music for all of Tim Burton's movies, including and as well as a number of other movies. And they had already recorded the singing, and I think they just felt they needed a different quality for the speaking voice.
Now, Chris, when you were on Broadway, did you sing in The Light in the Piazza?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've done 3 or 4 Broadway musicals.
Okay.
I did the original. I was in the original production of The Rothschilds on Broadway with Hal Linden. A lot of you guys may know who Hal Linden is. Barney Miller, right? And Hal won a Tony Award for that. And in fact, Hal's going to be on my podcast coming up after Jacques Pepin, which is the one that's up this week. In a couple of weeks, Hal Linden's podcast will be up. A wonderful man. Yeah.
Great seg. I wanted to mention that too. Chris has a new podcast called Cooking by Heart, wherever you get your podcasts, and it's also on YouTube. And he just interviewed Jacques Pepin in front of a live sold-out crowd in Fairfield, Connecticut of about 450 people.
Yeah, it was really an extraordinary evening.
So everyone, Cooking by Heart, check out the podcast.
Yeah,
And
and Jacques Pepin,
also,
extraordinary man as well.
yes, it's a lot of fun. It's the stories he tells are pretty funny.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, the Rice Krispies and things like that. It was good. And also TV, a lot of TV. The Good Wife, Orange is the New Black, ER, Cold Case, Law and Order. And then I thought this was brilliant casting. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you played Dracula.
Right. That's right.
So we're here to talk about, obviously, Dog Day Afternoon. And just for everyone here, February 23rd will be our next gathering. So please mark your calendars for that, and you will get to vote on that. But Dog Day Afternoon, Rotten Tomatoes score of 96 from the critics and 90% from the audiences, which is a little surprising. Actually, the audience count is that low. Rotten Tomatoes' critics' consensus said, framed by great work from director Sidney Lumet and fueled by a gripping performance from Al Pacino, Dog Day Afternoon offers a finely detailed snapshot of people in crisis with tensions of drama, shade in Black humor, which I think is a fair description. The box office, it was made for less than $4 million, approximately 20 or so million dollars today in today's money. But the box office, it did between 50 and $56 million, which today would be about $300 million.
Yeah, it was a big hit movie.
It
And a
was.
lot of Academy Award nominations for, I think the movie got something like 7 or 8 Academy Award nominations.
Right, and unfortunately, including you and Al Pacino, but the only one that won was for screenplay for Frank Pierce.
Yes, correct.
Because, unfortunately for you guys, you were up against One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Right, which won that year.
Right,
Correct.
won pretty much everything, right?
Yep.
All right, so I'm gonna pass this around. I'm gonna, because I think this is kind of, I got a kick out of this picture. I'm gonna put it right in the camera so you guys can see it, which hopefully will work.
I can't see the shot you're in. It's just blinking on and off with me.
Yeah, it's really,
All you have to do is change the speaker's view.
if you want to come up and do it, that'd be great, David, because I'm not sure I can do that.
Yeah, Zoom is a mystery to me as well. I find it really hard and I have to use it a lot on my podcast.
Right there, oh, do that.
You?
Should we get voted to? Oh, it's
There.
All right, we'll go with that. Can you see this though? Chris, can you see this or not?
No,
So that's not working
It
either.
only sees itself.
Yeah.
it's okay. What's the picture? What's the photo?
It's you, as Leon.
Ah,
Well, I'm trying to see, can you see it now or no?
No.
Pass it around. Can you pass that around?
I was there, so I kind of know what it's all about. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll do that.
Okay, all right, great.
Okay.
Is
So,
this me like getting out of a cab and clutching the robe, or is this on the telephone, or what?
On the street with the policeman.
With Mr. Broderick right behind you.
Yeah, in the barber shop,
Yes, in the barber shop, exactly.
right, with Charles Durning
Charles
and
Durning,
James Broderick, right?
James Broderick, who I found out is Matthew Broderick, or was Matthew Broderick's father.
Yep,
Right.
wonderful actor who worked a lot back in that day, in the 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yeah, character actor, yep.
Yep.
So a couple things I wanted to comment on. First, I'd love to ask you, I got to ask you about Sidney Lumet, because he's one of my all-time favorite directors. And for those of you who don't know, I want to give you an idea of some of his. First off, he was nominated for Oscars 5 times, 4 for director, including 12 Angry Men, Dog Day Afternoon, the movie he made after this one, Network, and also The Verdict with, of course, Paul Newman, and 1 for Best Adapted Screenplay for Prince of the City with his daughter, it's Jenny Lumet, who's also the granddaughter of Lena Horne, and wrote the screenplay for Rachel Getting Married with Anne Hathaway and Deborah Wingham.
Mhm.
I thought that was kind of cool. But with Sidney Lumet, his movies, I got like his top 10, which you could change the order, but The Verdict, Murder on the Orient Express, Serpico, also with Al Pacino,
Right,
City, Network, which was one of my all-time favorites,
great movie.
Fail Safe with Henry Fonda,
Yep, a movie called Running on Empty,
Running on Empty, right?
terrific movie.
The Pawnbroker with Rod Steiger, also a terrific movie.
And
And
Rod
he-
Steiger won an Oscar for that. Yeah,
That's right. And he worked with Marlon Brando and Joanne Woodward in The Fugitive Kind.
right. Which is a
And,
Tennessee Williams play, right?
Right, that's right. And Long Day's Journey into Night. So obviously the Eugene O'Neill story.
With
Wait.
Katharine Hepburn and Ralph Richardson, I think.
And Jason Robards. Yes.
Yes, right.
Yeah. So so tell me, what was he like to work with?
Well, Sidney he was a young actor in the Yiddish theater in New York when he was a boy. And so he had a very strong theater background. And he also directed a lot of, he directed, I don't know if you guys go back, any of you go back that far, I do, Playhouse 90, which was live television back in the day. Sidney directed a number of those. So he had very much a sort of theater background. So whenever Sidney did a movie, he rehearsed it like a play. And that is that you had a rehearsal period. We had a 3-week, I think, rehearsal period for Dog Day Afternoon. And you'd go into the rehearsal room like you would if you were doing a Broadway show. And the sets were taped out on the floor. There were props. And you worked through the script as if you were working through a play. And he was very much actor-centric, was great at casting. If you look at his movies, the casting is always just superb.
Yep.
And he used in supporting roles, he used a lot of theater actors. New York actors particularly. He was a thoroughly New York-based director too. And the process was that essentially you sat around, you read the script, you analyzed it, you got it up on its feet, you rehearsed it so that when it came to the shooting, Sidney already had the shooting in his head. He knew how he was going to shoot the movie. So that when you got to the set, you were thoroughly rehearsed. You knew, obviously you knew the dialogue, but also you knew exactly how you were going to interact with the other actors. And so this movie shot one of the arguments that movie studios make when they say, oh, you can't rehearse because it takes too much time and it costs too much money, is that Sidney's movies invariably came in under schedule and under budget. So that if the budget was, say, $10 million, Sidney would come in at 8. If the shooting schedule was 3 months, he'd come in at 2.5 months.
No wonder it works so often.
So you save big money on the other end. You save money at the, where you need to save it, which is when you're on a set, you've got hundreds of people who are on salary. Not only the people who are working camera, but also the people who are working catering, the people who are working wardrobe, the people who are building the sets, the people who are doing transportation. That's a big segment of the movie cost. So you save money when you don't shoot, extremely long schedules. And Sidney always did. And when you're rehearsing, you're not shooting anything. You have no crew. Essentially, it's just the actors, the director, and the script supervisor, the producers, maybe. So you don't have hundreds of people on salary. Basically, you've got the people who are in the room on salary.
Okay, but in 2 of the main settings in this movie, there were practically hundreds of people. Even in the barber shop, it was so packed.
Oh, yeah. There were crowds almost every day. Yeah.
300 extras, right?
Lots of people in the street, police,
Right.
helicopters, police cars. Yeah, they very cleverly, what they did with this movie was they bought a block
Right.
of a sort of rundown block in Brooklyn. And they put the bank in a storefront in one of those. And then the upstairs was the production office and the catering. So everybody ate upstairs. The wardrobe was upstairs. So everything was very contained within that block. And also, if you're shooting a movie in a city, particularly, then you've got crowd control problems. You've got traffic problems. You've got noise problems, particularly in New York City. Whereas with this, they had complete control of an entire block, so that they didn't have to worry about passersby. They didn't have to worry about noise from people, yelling during a shot or whatever. It was very cleverly produced as well as directed.
Well, one second. Tell us about, because I read that Sidney Lumet really didn't go for improvisation. However, in this movie, he kind of made some exceptions. And one of them that was mentioned was you with Al Pacino on the phone. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, sure. First of all, as you mentioned, Ed, the script was the only one of the Academy Award nominations that won an actual Oscar. It was a wonderful script. But the telephone scene, if you guys remember the telephone scene between Pacino and the character that I played, it was, in the original script, very melodramatic. As soon as the characters picked up the phone to talk to each other, they started yelling at each other. And both Al Pacino and I, after reading through the first time at rehearsals, we both observed that we had reservations about the way the scene was constructed, not what the scene contained, but the actual run up to the meat of the scene. And both of us made the argument that when you're in a relationship with somebody that's longstanding, and these guys had a relationship for years before the movie, they actually were married in a church. And my character, Leon, I don't know if you folks remember, but there's a shot of me on a television screen in a wedding gown in full drag. Right. Yes. Well, a couple of people are nodding. They remember that. I have a side story about that, but I'll tell that in a minute. At any rate, and so we said, the fact is that when 2 people know each other really well, and the situation is already melodramatic. You don't have to start the scene melodramatically by having them yell at each other. It's more like, you know, one of the guy's in the bank holding hostages, and the other guy's been in the hospital who he tried to overdose on uppers and downers and, you know, whatever. And so they know this about each other, and they pick up the phone and they go, "Hey, how you doing?" "Yeah, I don't know. I'm, you know, so and so." And then Al and we started improvising the beginning of the scene that way, and then kind of followed the meat of the scene that Frank Pearson had written, but with variations. And so we came up with a few ad libs here or there. The scene about going to Algeria, I mean, the line about going to Algeria, and, you know, Sal wants to go to Algeria, that. And there were a number of things that we improvised. And then when we finished kind of doing that one little kind of run through, Sidney went, "Hold on. Let me do," and he called over the script supervisor and said, "Give me a tape recorder." And we sat there, and for a couple of 3 hours, we just ran through it over and over again, improvising each version of it. And then when we finish, say, a version, then we'd say, "Oh, we left this out, this information that Frank put in that we need," or "There's this wonderful moment in Frank's version that we left out. Let's put that back in." And then we had maybe 3 or 4 different versions of the scene that were recorded that Sidney liked. They transcribed them. And then we got together later. And as I recall, we got together in Marty Bergman's office. Marty Bergman was one of the producers and also Al's manager. And Marty Elfand and Frank Pearson was there, and Al and me, and obviously Sidney. And we decided on the version that we ended up using. And that version was scripted, and that's what we did. We didn't improvise it on the day.
Okay, got it. So
the improvisation took place in rehearsal.
And it got put into the script that way, and that's what
Yes.
you want.
Yeah, but then there were little things. You know, I just did a podcast with Carol Kane. I don't know if you folks are familiar with Carol Kane.
And
She
she's
played.
in the movie as
Yeah.
Jenny the
Yeah,
Teller,
right.
who's arguing with her boyfriend because he's asking about, "Are you gonna be home for
You'd
dinner?"
know her immediately if you saw Carol. She was Valerie, the Miracle Max's wife in The Princess Bride. And she's done a bunch of movies. Hester Street. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a movie called Hester Street. She was nominated for an Oscar for that. She's won a bunch of Emmy Awards. She was on Taxi for a number of years.
Years.
Yes.
Lots of type, right?
Yeah, and she won I'm sorry, I'm just getting a message from somebody that I have to answer, but as soon as I do, I will continue. I have to give somebody a code because they're using it's the guy who runs my website.
Oh,
Okay, all right. So anyway, so Carol said that when they were shooting, that at one point she's hiding under a desk,
Yes.
and Al walks by her and he goes, "Hey, what do we got here? A squirrel?"
squirrel, right?
That was an ad lib. But just every once in a while, basically the movie you saw is the movie that Frank Pearson wrote, with the exception of the phone scene.
And wasn't Attica, you know, Al Pacino, yeah, wasn't that?
I think that was in the script. I believe it was. I'm not positive because it's been a long time.
All right, yeah, on IMDb, they said that was an ad lib that was.
It may have been. Yeah, it could have been an ad lib of Al's.
That
Yeah,
the assistant director suggested to Al, and Al gave him credit for later.
cool.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Oh, and the story about, I'll tell you very quickly, the story about they gave me the picture of me in the wedding gown, right? And I showed it to my mom. And my mom, she had a great sense of humor, my mother. And she said, "I have to show this to your uncles." So the next time she went to Florida, because she was from a town called Tarpon Springs, Florida.
Oh, yeah, West Coast. Yeah.
A Greek town. She was from there. She took it to one of the gatherings of the family, and she showed it to my uncles, and to a man. They all looked at the picture of me and they went, "Oy, what a dog." So at any rate, that's my wedding picture story. You were saying, Ed?
Okay, so, and I wanted to talk about the robe. So the image which I passed around to everybody here is you clutching the robe to kind of cover yourself.
Yeah,
So where did that come from?
I
'Cause thought
stole
that
it.
was-
I
that was-
stole it from a photograph
Ah,
of the real Ernie Aaron, who was the
Right.
real character. We had a lot of access to, because it was a big story in New York when it happened.
right.
It was huge. It was all over the front page of all the newspapers.
Like
There were interviews.
1972, I think it was 72. when it
I think
actually-
so, yeah, somewhere around there. And so there was a lot of news coverage. There were photographs of the event itself. And then post the event, there were also a lot of newspapers did interviews with the various characters. So I had both visual of the character, and also I heard recordings, etc. So I had a lot of stuff to work with. And what's the adage? Steal from the best. Well, I stole from the original.
Right.
That picture of him clutching the robe was a photograph that we were shown in pre-production.
Now, this I have to ask you about too, because you are a heterosexual male and Al
Yes, sir.
Pacino is a heterosexual male. But here in this movie, you're both playing gay characters, or Al's, I guess, bisexual.
Right.
That couldn't happen today, could it?
Cultural appropriation.
No, actually, we've been through this recently. My wife just directed a film that had a number of gay characters in it. And it's a wonderful movie, by the way. It's not out yet. It's called The Grotto.
Wow.
And my wife Joanna directed it and wrote it as well. And she felt that she really needed to cast gay men as the characters. It's the cultural zeitgeist now, where I think we all demand that more authenticity. There's another side to that coin, which is that I know a number of, like, for instance, a couple of her producers who are gay said, you don't have to cast a gay man in the lead role. But she felt that she should, and she did, and it turned out really wonderfully.
Okay, but this movie didn't turn out too badly either, where you got nominated and Al Pacino got nominated.
Right.
Because you guys are actors, right?
Right.
That's what they call us. Yeah.
And obviously you did very well. Okay, I had to cover that because it's a tough thing, because I get
know.
both sides, and I don't know
Yeah.
how you.
Well,
You're
just, up until fairly recently, Jared Leto won an Oscar for playing a gay character in a film, and he's not gay. But I don't think he would be cast today, and I don't think I'd be cast in Dog Day.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I got to mention your hair in the movie. Yeah, I noticed you had a combination of a just rolled out of bed combined with just had electroshock therapy. Of course, was that actually all your hair, or was that makeup and extensions and things?
No, I
like that?
just let my hair grow, and then we just tease the hell out of it. You ladies know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
That was great. I do want to, there's some trivia things I want to cover. And get your
Please.
take on, but I want to see if the room has a question or two for you. Madeline?
No, my
Sure.
question was, the whole movie was shot on location there? You didn't do
Yes,
anything?
absolutely. No location other than that street in Brooklyn. Both the interiors and the exteriors, the outside shots and the inside shots were all shot there, except for the airport at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Knowing that actors get stereotyped by their roles, did you have any trepidation playing a transgender person in 1975 that you?
At the time,
That
yeah, I thank you for that question. Actually, at the time, I guess it was considered very daring, but I'd been working in the theater for 10 years before this movie, actually longer. And I worked a lot in regional theater, and I'd done Broadway, and I'd worked at the Shaw Festival in Canada, and I really saw it as just, this is another character.
okay.
But my agent, who was gay, said to me, you have to think about this very seriously because you could get typecast. And essentially I said to him, look, this is a great role, and I understand the character. And it goes beyond stereotyping in terms of gay and straight and LGBTQ and trans. The reason I think why the movie struck a chord with the public, because it did really well at the box office, is because it's about a screwed up relationship in a very melodramatic, set in a very melodramatic sort of situation, but done very artfully and done in such a way so that you feel for these people. Because we've all been there. We've all been in screwed up relationships one way or another. I mean, the reality of their actual relationship in real life was much more bizarre than this movie. Much more. Yeah, it was very toxic.
Right.
You know, yeah.
I read volatile, yes.
I have a question about, you talked a lot about how everything was pretty much scripted, even the one that you then eventually worked on and it became scripted. I was particularly so blown away by Charles Durning and Al Pacino's argument.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It was like, that was scripted.
Well, within bounds, yes. I mean, the content was, you know, they had to get from A to L or R or whatever. But the alphabet in between might have been jiggled around, and it was it was, you know, inspired and with two really brilliant actors just kind of playing tennis with each other, but playing a very vicious and combative tennis. Yeah, that's well observed. That's true. It's hard to imagine that scene was scripted. It was in its essence, but probably there was a lot going on in between. I wasn't in it. I wasn't in a lot of the movie.
No.
All right, yes, go ahead,
I was surprised at how,
loud.
I was surprised at how current the movie still is.
Yeah.
And I thought your acting was incredible, actually.
Thank you.
did invite my two kids to come on Zoom, and no offense to you, but I'm glad they didn't come, because given the reaction, your joke was very funny, but it was hurtful to me because my two kids are transgender. And
I'm not sure who you're referring to.
What joke?
Oh, the joke about your mom showing the picture.
Oh, it had that joke had nothing to do with transgender, ma'am. It only had to do with the fact that they thought it was an ugly young woman, a real young woman. It had nothing to do with the fact that they thought it was me and trans. They didn't recognize me. My mother said, I'm sorry, I left something out. My mother said, I just went to a Greek wedding in Queens, and this is the bride.
I guess you don't see that was a transgender woman, and
No.
that reaction that a lot of transgender women get today. So it's
So my apologies for not fully rounding out that story. That was my fault. It had nothing to do with the fact that they thought it was a transgender character. They thought it was a woman that my mom had gone to a wedding for.
sorry. I just wanted you to know that most people
Okay.
don't recognize transgender women as transgender. They just think, wow, what a dog.
No, my apologies. That was my fault.
There's obviously nothing intended. Okay.
I'm not criticizing you. I want you to understand.
I
the-
understand. That's why I'm apologizing.
Oh, no, all right, thank you. Okay, so there's some notes from the trivia thing I wanted to cover. This was from IMDb's website. Although he had initially agreed to play the part of Sonny, Al Pacino told Sidney Lumet near the start of production that he couldn't play it. I don't know if you knew this.
No.
Pacino had just completed production on The Godfather Part 2 and was physically exhausted and depressed after the shoot. With his reliance on the method acting style, Pacino did not relish the thought of working himself up to a state of near hysteria every day. Lumet unhappily accepted the actor's decision and sent the script to Dustin Hoffman. Pacino changed his mind when he heard that his rival was being. You didn't know that one? I didn't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't either.
Okay, all right, I thought that was funny.
That's funny.
Supposedly during production, Pacino only slept a couple of hours a night and ate sparingly and would sometimes take cold showers in order to emphasize Sonny's disheveled, exhausted, and stressed wired appearance.
Sure.
Now, a little trivia, Sal, the character of Sal, John Cazale.
He's gone.
No, he's there. It's just the camera's moving around. So Sal berates one of the bank tellers for smoking, saying he doesn't smoke because, quote, "I don't want to get the cancer." Meanwhile, John Cazale was a heavy smoker and died from lung cancer
Yeah,
later.
Oh,
Yeah.
sadly.
How ironic is that, right?
So you come.
All right, it said, much of the film's dialogue was improvised while completely honoring the structure of the original screenplay. And it said that you rehearsed together as the cast for 3 weeks. And then Lumet took the improvisations from the rehearsals and made that the official screenplay. That's pretty accurate from what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, I'm only aware of it in terms of my scene, certainly. Yeah.
John Cazale was cast at Pacino's insistence, despite being nowhere near the age of the real Sal, who was 18 at the time.
Yeah.
The guy was, yeah. So, and Lumet was opposed to it because he said he's clearly inappropriate for the part. However, when he came in to read for the part, he was sold within 5 minutes that John Cazale was the guy.
Wait, John Cazale's is who?
He was Sal.
He played Sal.
And the line about, you know, what country do you want to go to? When he said Wyoming, he improvised it. And so the stunned look on Pacino's face. And what I read was that Lumet was right there and he had to cover his mouth because he started to laugh and he didn't want to ruin the tape.
Yeah.
That was the best one.
Right, so here, the credit for Attica Attica was assistant director Bert Harris, according to Pacino. That's where that came from.
Could be. Yep.
And
Um,
the real life Sal was only 18 years old?
Yes. And Charles, same thing with the Attica. Charles Durning's confused reaction was natural, as he wasn't sure what his character was supposed to do next. One of my regrets of the film was that Charles Durning was so great in the beginning, and then he kind of gets lost when the FBI takes over.
Wait,
Mm. Well, that was the reality. Yeah.
you know what it's doing? It's whoever. It's whoever is talking, whoever.
They need to mute themselves.
They need to mute
Yeah.
themselves.
If you're not speaking, please just hit mute. If you're on Zoom, thank you. All right, then where was another one? Oh, there was something about did some of the, oh, well, you weren't really outside to speak your lines. You were really basically in the barber shop pretty much the whole time, right?
For my lines, yes, I had one entrance from the police car into the barbershop where I faint.
Yes.
Right.
And actually, I stole that from my ex-wife, Susan.
Oh, really?
One day at our house, we had a house up in Westchester County, a little farmhouse. And she fainted from, I can't remember what the problem was, but I just remembered vividly what happened and what happened with her body and her head going back and then her body went. And you take things from life.
Wow, that's a while. I
It
didn't
was
know
a
that.
great feint.
So they're saying that when you shot, here it is, the outdoor sequences were actually filmed in cold weather. And so that the actor's breath would not be visible, they placed ice in their mouths before each take. For a film
Yeah,
that was set in August, right? Did you
Right.
know that?
That's right.
Well, because the movie starts with that great kind of, the Elton John song and the, pictures of the streets of New York and dog. That's the title is the Dog Days of Summer.
Right. So, all right, so my thought was, I made my notes when I watched it, and the second time I'm thinking Elton John song, but they used Amarina, and I'm like, why did they use Amarina? So I tried researching it. Now, did you know why Amarina was used at the beginning of the movie?
No idea, just that it was a song from that period. No, why?
Right, because I was trying to think, usually there's some,
Yeah.
lyrical reference to something that foreshadowing, something like that. No. Dee Dee Allen, who was the editor, a phenomenal editor, by the way, who
Yeah, one of the greats.
Arthur Penn raved about what an editor she was.
Yeah.
She used it as a placeholder until they had the real song. And they took it out, and Sidney Lumet's going over the editing with her in the editing suite. He missed it and said, I want to get that movie back, that song back. So he
Yeah.
bought the rights to it for the movie.
Wow.
So that's the story of how Amarina got in the movie.
Oh,
which I-
wow. That's great. Yeah, I had no idea.
And then,
Because it's such a great kind of punch in the beginning of the movie, that kind of the tempo of that song and the visuals really set up the movie beautifully.
right, there's really no soundtrack. There's no soundtrack.
No,
The
no.
only other real song that has a bit of a part in the movie was Uriah Heep. I think Easy Livin' was the song, which I remember seeing them in concert when I was a teenager. but it's just a rock song and the guy kind of screams a little, but it was just like the song on the radio. And that's basically it. There's really no music in the movie. So it's just the grit of the city and the noise, the sound effects, especially the end with the sweeping airplane sounds while Al Pacino's getting the rights read to him.
Mhm.
Amazing. And the camera work also, the hectic camera work, how the movie starts, following Pacino and the humor of the scenes, even in the first off, the third bank robber drops out.
Yeah.
And the
That
look on
happened.
Pacino's face, like, are you kidding me? And then he has a similar look when the tellers all want to go to the bathroom. I'm like, what? So nothing, it was apparently very ill-fated, all along, every step of the way. I mean, even an early scene between Pacino and John Cazale in the bank, they're trying to talk from across the bank, and the pillars of the bank are in the way. You remember that?
Right,
And they're
right.
kind of like going between each other. It was not, and then of course the armored truck took the money away beforehand, which I read, according to the trivia, was not true. That they really got $270,000 from the bank, but I don't know if you were aware of that one, but
Not me.
okay.
I'm very, I'm aware of very, very little except for what I was doing, because I wasn't there much of the time.
Right.
Ed,
Yes.
what I noticed in the movie, in the very beginning, when they're in the vestibule of the bank, there's a calendar posted on like a bulletin board, and it reads September 1979, or the following year.
Be
If it happened in
73.
72, it said 73, but it was
Oh,
September,
okay.
when this was an August 72 event.
Yeah.
So why that happened, it's kind of.
That could be a, prop error. Yeah.
A slip up from the prop department, probably.
Yeah, fuck that.
So the real event happened in
72,
1972, and this movie came out. in
75.
75. That is that quick? That feels like quick from a real event to being.
It was actually, the movie came from I have to find out where it was, but it was
An article. Yeah, it came from an
article.
article.
Yeah, I was trying to see which one it was, but I'm
Yeah.
not able to see it right.
Probably the Post.
So when did production start, and can you say, when did it actually get released? Chris?
Oh, I honestly, I just remember the year. I don't remember. I honestly don't remember. It's been so long ago. You probably know better, Ed. It's probably on IMDb or someplace.
Yeah,
when
that I
production
didn't
started.
notice that part, but interestingly, one of the extras in the crowd scenes was Harvey Firestein as one of the gay demonstrators, uncredited.
Ah,
Did anyone happen to watch Jeopardy this week on Tuesday night? One of the questions was Al Pacino's role, who played the role in Dog Day Afternoon. I just thought it was an incredible coincidence.
yeah, yeah.
Story was Al Pacino.
Al Pacino movies.
Oh,
He
God.
was the category. And the answer was Dog Day Afternoon.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, I know we gotta let you go, Chris. Anyone have any other questions for Chris while he's with us? I got a few more things to cover, but anyone? Okay. All right, good.
I have one.
Okay.
Do you have any idea how close to reality the movie was? I mean, what really happened in New York City, as opposed to what was in the movie, do you think, were they relatively the same?
I would say that in broad strokes, they were very similar. But as with any work of art that's based on real events, there's a certain compression that has to take place. There's a certain kind of editing that has to take place in terms of events. And also, who knows what the real characters were saying at the time? Who knows what the real order of events were actually, what the actual order of events were. And I don't know if Frank Pearson is still alive, but that would be a great question for Frank. How he, I know it was based on that article, but then there were volumes of material. I don't mean volumes in books, but there was lots of material just from the press coverage of the time about the event. And I'm sure it was, it's a synthesis that takes place in the, in the artistic mind Based on, I think, is probably as close as you can get to, based on real events.
Right, okay, and we have one question from David here, and then I got one other one I want to hit you with, but go ahead, David.
Were you surprised to get nominated for an Oscar for your role? It was such a small role.
Actually, yeah, the field was very crowded that year. There were all those roles in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. There were a bunch of roles in other movies, and I didn't have a lot of money at the time. I was working for scale on that movie, and I had a wonderful manager who said, look, let's do a very sort of, these days, I get, because I'm a member of the Academy as a result of the nomination, by the way, I get reams of material, advertising various people in various roles in movies or the movies themselves, full page ads, Variety. There's something called The Envelope that the LA Times does, where they just do pre-Oscar coverage. And in those days, it was essentially you spent money yourself, or the studio spent money on you. The studio wasn't really interested in spending money on me. They did, I probably did for Al. I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling they might have. And so we just did a very sort of, I maybe spent, I don't know, $2,500. And my manager put in that much money, and we just put a few ads in here or there, and it just happened. I'm the recipient of good fortune in that regard.
Wow, that's
Just
great.
to get back to the last question, the actual person that Al Pacino played made a documentary, and it's called The Dog.
Chris, can you hear Ben? Ben, you got to speak
No,
up.
I'm not hearing it, no.
The person that played Al Pacino, the real person, made a documentary called.
Right. Little John, right.
There were a couple of funny things there. They went to a bank. The first bank around was one of the guys shot a shotgun and broke their mirror, so they took off. The second bank robbery, they went in and his mother's friend recognized him, so they left.
The gang who couldn't shoot straight, right, yeah.
This was our third bank.
The sound is breaking up, guys. Your sound is. And your picture is gone.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. That's beyond my control. That was the third
Yeah.
bank I went to. So, okay, well, I won't keep you anymore, but thanks so much for hearing.
Thank you, folks. It's my pleasure. Thank you for keeping this movie in the zeitgeist, and because I'm very proud to have been in it. And I thank you all for this chance to talk about it a little bit. I haven't in a while. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
A couple other things I have for everyone. So if you're not familiar with the writer, Frank Pearson, the other things he wrote before this were Cat Ballou and Cool Hand Luke. He also wrote Citizen Cone, Truman, and a movie called Conspiracy that got 100 on Rotten Tomatoes. Not a ton of critical reviews, but it starred Kenneth Branagh and Stanley Tucci in 2001, and then Soldier's Girl. So that was kind of interesting. He wrote for TV as well, everything from starting out as Have Gun Will Travel to Alfred Hitchcock Presents. He directed. So he did several other.
Question, Ed.
Yes.
How did you get him? Like, what's the backstory on that? Getting him to come
Oh,
do
well,
this?
Chris is a client.
Two questions. So, how old is Susan Sarandon? Susan Sarandon's mother?
No.
That's the next wife.
What? That's why.
It's his first wife. It's the first.
They met in Catholic University. No.
Younger.
They met in Catholic University.
First question.
I do public relations work. Someone's trying to get in there. So
I got it.
for his podcast, I'm promoting his podcast. So I got actually Jacques Pepin on the we got that scheduled.
Ed, could you hear me?
Yeah.
Ed, we're watching a video and we don't see you. We see that lovely couple, whoever they are.
Yeah, Jeremiah, can you hit your mute button, please?
Oh, it's their
It's
face.
their face. We always see it.
Can you hit
Now
mute,
we're-
Jeremiah?
Now we're good. Now we're good. Thank you.
Okay.
So you have a personal relationship with him, is what you're saying?
Oh, yeah, yeah. We have a lawyer who I've done work for a lot of his clients. He's Chris's lawyer, and the lawyer introduced me.
Oh, great.
So,
And Michelle has a question.
okay, and you like the podcast?
Yeah. And Michelle has a question.
Okay, yes,
I think, did they say that Leon got his sex change operation? and
Correct.
somebody went away to jail? Do you have any idea what happened to the relationship after?
they were, it was a very toxic relationship and they parted ways. And the Sonny character actually remarried. The Leon character died of AIDS in 1987.
Wow.
The Sonny character died at age 60 from cancer.
But he was released from prison.
And he went back again because he broke parole twice. I think he broke parole violations. Yeah.
Wait, which got shot in the head?
The other guy.
Sonny.
Sonny. So he didn't live? He didn't get.
Sal. My pun. Sal got shot. Sonny was Pacino, right?
Yeah.
So, now, did you remember the scene at the end when they did where Sal did get shot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why did they, I'm thinking, why did they wait until they got to the airport to do that, right? Well, what they needed was Broderick, James Broderick, Matthew Broderick's father, as the FBI guy, to come to the window so he could push Al Pacino's gun forward so nothing would happen with that. And that gave the cop in the driver's seat to open up the thing and quickly shoot John Cazale, which he kept saying, point your gun up. Remember, he kept saying, Sal, put your gun up. We don't want any accidents, right? And that's why. So, because he was the one who was dangerous. They knew, they analyzed him. These guys were in the war.
He was a loose.
He was unstable. He was the one who was much more risky of potentially killing people. And there was a line in the bank where he whispers to Pacino, we can shoot him now.
Yeah.
You know, so they knew who they were dealing with.
So Pacino gave tacit approval for the assassination of that guy.
Well, you know, that's a gray area. That's a gray area.
He did. He was in jail and he was raped there and he wasn't going back to jail. That's what they said.
Yeah, Sal did not, he was not going back to
No
jail.
way he was going back.
Right.
No, but Sonny did not object when the police officer said, you know, we'll take care of stuff.
Right.
We'll take care of stuff.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
there was that foreshadowing, right? And you're right, I think he said it twice to make sure he got it.
Well, he kept saying, what do you mean? What do you mean? Yeah. Like,
Right.
As if.
I think he didn't want to
know.
understand,
Right.
Yeah.
but you're right, it's a good point. Oh, what was the other point I was gonna say?
He gave
I just had it.
Let it go, it'll come back.
Yeah.
No, it's probably the obvious that the guy was just a loose screw, but I mean, I don't think Sal said more than 10 words in that whole movie.
Right.
I mean, is that just, there's nothing more to that than just that the guy was like, woo, out there?
I couldn't find too much about the Sal character in what I saw online. It was mostly about Sonny. There was some about Leon, of course. And some about the real Sonny's
He was.
other wife and kids.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to talk to Chris about that because I thought that was a slight flaw in the movie in that how the mother was portrayed. Suggesting, you know, she comes out and Roger Ebert criticized it, saying, you know, it's like too Freudian, a little too heavy-handed, which I agree. But, you know, you remember what the mother says to him? Run! You're surrounded by all the cops. I mean, it's really just kind of stupid and useless. And the other part was his wife, his other wife we had the kids with, she got on the phone with her. She's like not letting him talk. You remember that?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God. She just kept talking. She didn't listen to hear anything he had to say, which is.
Just to add a little local color, I was staying at Susan Peretz's house. I'd come in from California to read for something, and she's the one that played the female wife. And she was up against Bette Midler. And it was between Bette Midler and her, and she got it. She was a nervous wreck, I remember. And
Wow.
I said, just to tell you that Pacino's name as a kid, his nickname was Sonny. He was called Sonny all his life, and that's the name he wanted used in the production. So that's just a little local color around the thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Very cool. Very cool.
That's my sister is sitting there with 2 down. Hi.
I thought it was unclear when he said, we'll take care of Sal, that Sonny wasn't sure that it didn't mean necessarily they're gonna kill him.
No,
They
it
were gonna take care of him,
It's
which.
kind of that way.
No, I took it as it's probably gonna kill him if they need to.
Yeah.
That's the way I took it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Pacino, I mean, there was so much going on with Pacino for him to get nuance, may have been asking a lot for his character at the time, especially given the situation he was in and the stress.
But Ed, that could go either way. We'll
Yes.
take care of
Yes,
Sal,
it could.
We'll take care.
Yes, it could.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's he said it more.
I didn't take it that way either, though. So
No.
I mean, I was-
Okay, so, and maybe the Sonny character didn't either. I don't know.
Also, everything about Sonny was like, oh, he's a good Catholic boy, and even Susan said, Perret said, like, oh, you've never done anything like
That's
this,
right.
and everything surrounding him was like, you're such a good boy, you know, and the Sal character was, even though he didn't have many lines, he was clearly on the edge
Yes.
Fragile.
of doing something.
It's
Right.
explosive.
You know, and this gets kind of interesting too, because one of some of the reviewers mentioned Stockholm syndrome as far as the hostages, if you want to call them that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there was one scene, I don't know if you remember, and the camera's only panning during it in the bank, when one of the women tellers is actually holding and playing with the rifle. And I'm going like, right? She's spinning the rifle, like pretending to be a soldier. Right, right. So she's holding the rifle. She could have, yeah, they could have said, hold, stay, get back, we're leaving, you know, nope, didn't happen. And the other thing was the head teller.
He had the clip. They made a point of that. He had the clip.
Okay,
Oh,
but then obviously they can't shoot her either.
Right.
Oh, he had another gun. He had that other gun.
The other gun, okay, yeah, but, all right.
But it was.
But it was more,
You know, like,
No, it was clear.
right, they were bonding. And then the scene where the head teller is outside, like Charles Durning's encouraging her, come on. It's like, she looks, but wait a minute, she didn't just say no. She looked around and saw the crowd and the cameras and said, no, I'm staying with my girls. A little, so I think part of it, and we didn't need Chris here to address it, because I didn't want to take up time with it, but he, Frank Pearson, and I obviously think Sidney Lumet, wanted to make a point of the media. And if you notice, his next movie was Network, all about the media, where a guy, they get huge ratings for an anchor committing suicide on the air.
Yeah.
So this was a perfect lead-in for the director into that next movie, where you've got, you know, the media, such a thing, and Pacino feeds off of it when he starts out and he's getting cheered, right? And he does the Attica thing, he's playing off it. Put your guns down, and everyone's yelling in
And he's
support of it.
throwing money to the.
He's
crowd.
throwing money, exactly, he's playing to the audience. But then, when it hits the news that he was a homosexual,
Yeah. that's right.
people are booing him, right? And then, and Roger Ebert, I think it was him, he wrote, I can't remember if it was Ebert or if it was Vincent Canby in the Times. He wrote, here it is, yeah, it was Ebert. He wrote, at first, Sonny is their hero, and he does a defiant dance in front of the bank, looking like a rock star playing to his fans. When it becomes known that Sonny's bisexual, the crowd turns against him. But within a short time, and he writes, New York being New York, gay livers turn up to cheer him on. Okay, so it kind of went back and forth.
So then you get the new crowd, the gay crowd.
Right, so, and he was playing to them, right? Okay, so, and just to kind of put a stamp on the whole celebrity and media coverage, the movie has an irreverent, quirky, this is from Roger Ebert, who wrote his original review in 1975. We even get some notion of the times we live in when the bank starts getting obscene phone calls and the giggling tellers breathe heavily into the receiver. There's also, and there's, I mean, if you remember, there's a crank caller saying, shoot them all, okay? There's also, in a film that's probably about 15 minutes too long, which is what Ebert wrote, an attempt to take a documentary look at the ways police and banks try to handle situations like this. And through it all, there's that tantalizing attraction of instant celebrityhood, caught for an instant when a pizza delivery man waves at the camera and shouts, hey, I'm a star, right? So, yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting too. So, okay, yeah, and Canby's review, he talks about, the movie says, oh, each of the several principals' lives it touches has been grossly bent out of shape, the main characters. The director and Frank Pearson, who wrote the fine screenplay, don't attempt to supply reasons. The movie says only that this is what happened, no more. Dog Day Afternoon is a gaudy street carnival movie that rudely invites laughs at inappropriate moments, which is in keeping with the city's concrete sensibility. Lumet's film is exclusively concerned with the robbery attempt and the time it occurred in. Okay, that's pretty much it. So, anyone else have any comments want to say about this one? Before we wrap it up?
He showed his true self when Pacino said, "We're gonna start throwing a dead body out every 5 minutes." And Sal says, I'll do that.
Yes, right. Yeah, to reinforce the message he was dangerous, right?
I said, I'll do it.
Yeah, because Pacino's character was just showboating, but he took it seriously.
So Ed, did that truly happen in real life when they took them to the airport and they shot the one guy in the head in the back seat
I don't know if it happened that way, but he was killed
at the airport?
by the FBI. I'm not sure if it was at the airport or not.
Oh,
I didn't see that.
Okay.
But he was, and by the way, there were exactly 2 bullet shots in the entire movie. The first one was when they thought the police were coming in through the back, and there was a warning shot fired through the window. And then the only other one was when Sal's character was killed. That was it.
Well, do you know if that was accurate that they asked for a plane and a helicopter? That's.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Because it seemed bizarre to me.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Like that would actually happen, right?
Well, it's a long time ago, maybe. Yeah, it did happen.
No, they used to have Couple other little things. So you're asking about the transition surgery. Yeah, Elizabeth Eden, the real Leon, did get the surgery paid for by Sonny from the $7,500 plus 1% of the net profits he got for the film rights to his story. She died of complications from AIDS in 1987 at age 41. Sonny was sentenced to 20 years in a federal penitentiary, served 5 years, only served 5, was released on parole, but then he subsequently served 2 stretches for parole violations. He died in 2006 of cancer, age 60. Al Pacino wore no makeup at all during filming. He achieved his burnt out and gaunt look by sleeping as little as possible and eating sporadically. And of course, Pacino and John Cazale played brothers in The Godfather, 72.
Yes.
And then little trivia, the third brother in The Godfather, you remember, was James Caan.
Right.
And remember what his character's name was?
Thank
you. There you go.
So what did happen to the third guy?
He bailed.
I know, but.
And he was upset that they wanted him to leave the car. Because it's just another thing of how these guys screwed up everything, you know, right? Rather than show they went to the third bank, I guess they did this, and they lost the third bank robbery. Well, it just showed how poor planned it was, you know.
And then.
Right.
Went to jail too.
Yeah.
That's my question. Yeah, I was.
The night before the hotel, before they robbed the bank. He went to jail and he left. What else was part of it?
So Ed, was there really a third bank robbery?
Oh, Al Pacino's character said the real guy said he spent most of the time outside working in the house. And Sal was very young. He was, I think.
He was 18.
Or 18, but he was in prison 4 years before that, and he was just very caught up in that.
When they made a pact, they don't die if they got.
Right, they did agree to that they would both rather die than go.
So Ed, in the real version of this, was there truly a third guy who left? All right, thank you.
Yep, okay. All right,
So one point that surprised me, thought he was such a bumbler, you know, throughout this, and yet he was perceptive enough that he picked out the fact that the limousine driver
Yeah.
was really a cop.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
but so was the cop that he picked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but at least he knew who that was, you know, I guess, anyway.
Oh, by the way, do you know who that actor was who played that cop?
Familiar. No, I don't know.
No.
Lance Henriksen.
Oh, who's that?
Oh, you look him up. He's been in a million movies, character actor. But I mean, when you see all the movies, you see all the movies he's been in, I guarantee you've probably all seen him 20 times, right? Well, I didn't, I'm so used to him having many more lines on his face from when he was older. This is like a very early.
I said they bought the street in Brooklyn. I should have asked them. First of all, they bought it and they resold it, right?
No, it was rented, you know.
What do you, he says they bought it.
Yeah, it rented. Well, the bank was actually a warehouse, an unused warehouse space, so that was pretty easy to work with. Oh, God, go ahead.
50% of the people.
Oh, that I didn't see. Would you, Madeline, please read a few of Lance Henriksen's films.
The bishop.
He's been in so many, you're not gonna.
X-Files, Tarzan, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare,
Okay.
BioWare's Mass Effects.
He always plays the tough guy.
Video games.
Yeah.
The
Terminator, I was thinking Terminator.
Terminator and Pumpkinhead.
Or- Terminator. Yeah, if you look at his older face, you recognize him.
Okay.
All right, he was actually,
Video.
he had a pretty key role, by the way, in a TV series that another of my clients made called on Amazon Prime called Big Dogs. It's pretty good up until the last episode. The director kind of screwed that up, but it's pretty good. But he plays a senior cop, which he plays a cop a lot of times too. And he's just this grizzled cop who doesn't want to get any administrative crap handed to him any more than he needs to. And that's his role. He's in several of the episodes. So
He also had 3 wives.
Lance Henriksen.
Oh, you just.
Well, that's a Hollywood thing, right? All right, so thank you. I appreciate everyone coming. Remember, February 23rd is next time, and I don't know where the sign-up sheet is, but if you're here, please put your name on it so you can get the votes for the next one. Yeah, you guys are gonna vote on the next one. Yeah.
What? I am.
I just wanna.
Ed,
Yeah.